I'm Dr. Kaushik Ram, and on this channel, I take you on adventures with mind and body. And today I have Dave POW Tabain with me. Dave is a 3-time world Kettlebell Champion. He's also the challenge guy, and on his 30-day programs, there have been over 10,000 people worldwide that have participated in it. And he's also the author of the children's book, POWMAN, which is going berserk in schools nationwide. Dave, it is so incredible to have you with us on this channel today. And before we get into your incredible story, tell us something that we don't know about you.
Straight off the cuff, mate, it's great to be here. I'm excited for what we've got in store for today. And I guess that one thing, if you want to know one thing people don't think or know of is I've only got one kidney.
Wow.
Yeah, had a birth defect when I was 3. They didn't know what it was. First 3 years of my life, I was sort of in pain the whole time. They just kept telling my mum I was a crybaby. Pretty stressful time for my parents. They ended up telling my parents that I was riddled with cancer, and they didn't accept that. And so they went and took me to another doctor outside of my little town and operated on me straight away, took the kidney out, and I'm good. So I'm living with one kidney. So it was a pretty crazy time. But yeah, that's probably something that people don't know. But it sort of changed my life. And what I do today.
So you started with kettlebells when you were 17. That's and you still stuck with it. So it seems to have grown into a passion that you've stayed and sustained. What is it about kettlebells that drives you so much?
Well, hey, they're just a tool. It's just a piece of metal with a handle on it. But let me tell you how you got started. I was in year 12, and I had this arch nemesis at school, and we're getting into parties and all that sort of stuff. Then all of a sudden I'm at all these parties, and I'm starting to get told that this guy's going to bash me. He's got older brothers. They're going to come out and get me, and all this kind of crap. This was a guy that I was super nice to at school. Helped introduce him to people at school, and it kind of like turned against me in a way. And so I had these threats so getting made at all these parties, and I wasn't too happy with it. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do something about it. And me and my buddies, we then started to do, I met this new teacher going to a swimming carnival. He's a new teacher from Canberra. He just happened to be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. And at that time, I got handed a few of the first UFC videos, 1 to 10.
I see.
And so I'm watching UFC. It just started coming out. Met this jiu-jitsu teacher, and I was like, man, we're going to do something with this. I was doing a bit of kickboxing at the time. I had a cousin who was partnered with Australia's #1 kickboxer. So I started to get into fighting, and I always done sort of martial arts growing up. So I started to get into that, and my high school teacher, Mark Elliott, come and trained with us. And, we trained, and I really honored that. I was like, you're coming to do what we're doing. It was CBJJ, it was Country Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Club. And so we did that. He come and trained, and then he said, hey, if you want to, start to get stronger and all this sort of stuff, you can come and train for me. I've got these weights that the Russians use, and it was very top secret about it. And I was very intrigued by it. And so what happened is I was like, cool, I'll come. You did my art form, I'll come do yours. And I walked in, he had a backyard garden shed, 3 bits carpet on the ground, 5 kettlebells, no electricity, dog named Barney, it was a deaf dog named Barney, German Shepherd, who just returned the frisbee non-stop, and lawnmower in the corner. It was this little shed, this little setup. And Mark, after leaving the army and that was he got back, he sort of stacked on a bit of weight after the army, becoming a teacher and a father, and he's got 4 daughters, and really respectable guy, and I really looked up to this guy. And so I got introduced to the kettlebell from him. And they were the first kettlebells in Australia. And so no one knew what kettlebells were. They were an unknown tool. I think I'd seen one on a cartoon at one point. So I walked in, trained with him, and I remember distinctly how I left that place. I was so pumped on life. I had more energy leaving than when I walked in, and I was hooked. And I was like, Mark, I want to keep training. And I would just call Mark up. Mark, when can we train again? When can we train again? And I just got addicted to them. And the feeling of, I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fittest or or anything like that. But with kettlebells, it's all about work ethic. And for me, where I come from, you know, the mark of a man in my family is who can stay on the shovel the longest, sort of thing. It was your work ethic that is how you prove yourself. So for me, I guess I was looking for something to prove myself as I'm coming into adulthood, and these kettlebells were that tool. And also at the time, man, there was bodybuilding or marathon running. And I saw this gap in the market because growing up with sisters, I was like, well, my sisters don't want to be a marathon runner or a bodybuilder, but they want to be fit and healthy and have confidence and feel good about themselves. And so I actually annoyed the shit out of my sister to come and train with me, Jenny. And she was a natural. She rocked it. And she dropped a bit of weight and just took off. She got out of high school, and it was first year out of high school. And I saw my sister just transform as herself. And I saw that the kettlebell was a great tool to get someone moving and working on themselves. And that paid off outside the gym. Because, you know, what we do in the gym is only a little bit, but what we do outside is so much. That's life. And so that's how I fell in love with the kettlebell and training people. And from there it exploded. Like, you couldn't shut me up. I was telling every single person in my little town about kettlebells, and people were like, what is this thing? You know, and they thought they had like this Taj Mahal, like in this shed. And they were expecting, like, you know, the way I talked about it was like, oh, this is next level, you know, and Mark would tell me all the science behind it. And I'd bring people like to Mark's house in his backyard shed, and people were like, is this it? You know, the kettlebells? And I was still pumped, and I would, I'd make it very entertaining for them and very community spirited, you know, high fives, and just make it a cool vibe. And people just, it was addictive for people. People come in, work on themselves, and you know, coming from a small town, man, a lot of people can be quite negative, and so it was a space that I allowed people to be positive and bring that energy in and change themselves. That was the big thing that I loved about it.
Then you didn't just stick to a small town. You then went on and competed, and, you know, took I guess 2 or 3 world championships. How did that come about?
Well, in that little shed, you know, as I mentioned earlier, is so imagine discovering this at 17. You're excited, you're pumped, you see the results of it, you're training, and then you get your HSC marks at school, and I failed English, and I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do? You know, I can't go to uni. And then my mum wanted me to become an electrician. She worked for TAFE, so she always helped the apprentices get qualified, and so she wanted to become an electrician, you know, get a trade behind you, this sort of stuff. So I was hesitant to do that, but, you know, I didn't know how to do anything else. I'd always worked since I was 12, and I knew how to get jobs. I knew how to do interviews and all that kind of stuff by then. So I ended up having my apprenticeship and the job, all the different jobs. And I would work away, but it wasn't my full passion. I was good at my job. I loved the team. You know, I loved my boss, amazing boss. He allowed me to have my business and would always make sure I got home on time. But there was, you know, there was something else there, and it was quite funny because there was this quite a challenging time where, you know, my dad got sick. He's been sick a few times, and these moments were really defining moments for where I had to step up in life. And there's this one time where at the time there was only like an underground forum on the internet about kettlebell lifters, and they put up this Australia's first online challenge, like competition, and I was straight away, I was like, I'm in, you know, and I submitted my numbers. And this guy called Paul Tucker from down in Tasmania, who started the Kettlebell Sport Association, he called me out and said, your numbers are fake. You know, no one can do those numbers in Australia. Like, you're fake, you know. If you think you've got what it takes, come to our first live Australian championships that we're going to be having. And so me back then, if you told me no, I'd fucking find a million ways to make it happen. You know, like, for example, in year 12, my deputy principal called me a fucking loser and said I was going to go nowhere. So I marched myself up to the library and started researching how much he made. First year out of my job, I made $500 more than him, $77,700 bucks, because I heard that he made $772. So I had this attitude that I was like, I'm not sure if we can swear on here, but I had this really, if you're going to tell me you can't do this, I'm like, fuck you, I'll prove it, I'm going to do it. Not to just rub it in your face, but also to show you, like, you know, as a teacher too, you should be trying to encourage kids, not tell them what they can't do. But I thank that guy because it gave me that drive. And a lot of us, we do need to thank those people that don't believe in us because it can give us that determination. But that competition, that's how I got into it. I went up and did my first title, and I actually thought that coming from a country town and them saying that I was a liar, I got something to prove. And so I trained twice as hard. And I thought the city people were twice as good. They had everything. I had no idea, I thought, and all this kind of stuff. Always thought coming from small towns is a disadvantage. But it drove me to train even harder. So when I got up there, I fucking smashed them. Wiped the floor with them.
Yeah.
And they at the start they counted me out. Like I had Dunlop volleys with holes out the side of them. Me and my mate Simo were in his lowered car. That was scraping all the way to Melbourne. We got lost. It was just this crazy experience. When we got there, there's this big guy who was winning that day, and when I started competing, he'd bagging me out whilst I'm lifting. Who's this guy? How does he think he's going to do this pace for 10 minutes? Blah, blah, blah. And I heard it while I was on the platform. And, you got these two weights. And it just drove me. I was like, fuck this guy. And so 9 minutes later, I just went fucking faster and brought it home and won my first Australian championships. And it was quite funny because, then everyone wanted to know me. But I'm like, and you learn this in life, is there'll be people that will support you and give you help before they even know who you are. But there's also some people that are just attracted purely because they want that social climbing kind of thing. So it's I always take note of those who support you through the come up sort of thing, as well as when you do make it somewhere. It's it's a funny thing, but that's how I got into competing, bro.
Yeah, this is so interesting because there's lots of occasions when especially in a school environment, the teacher would say something and they would say, you're not good at singing.
Yep.
And suddenly the kid just shuts down. They go, I'm no longer, that there's something I'm interested in, but my teacher told me I can't do that, so I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
But it seems like for you, you've made that into a driving force, but also this must come up a lot with your clients as well. All these belief systems that they hold, and you can instantly see those, they're just going along what maybe society has put into their minds. So the term that you used was, what was it?
Before, where we talk about learned helplessness.
Yeah, learned helplessness.
Yeah. So
can you dive a little bit deeper into that and just...
touch on that stuff.
Yeah.
So, from our previous conversation. So a big thing about our conditioning growing up and what we're capable of gets passed on from our parents and what they were capable of. The great thing that did get passed on me from my dad is when I survived getting the kidney issue, my dad would tell these stories about how I not only survived it, I thrived, and they used to wheel me around the hospital to show the other kids to drink after, like in their recovery, to speed up your recovery, because none of the kids in the hospital would drink. But I was the only one that would drink, because the way I survived 3 years with my kidney is I drank so much, my body kind of adapted, and I developed this thirst, so I'd always be thirsty.
So you drank water?
Water, yeah. Well, I actually drank green cordial. I was a fucking cordial kid, man. And so, but that allowed my body to because it was, my kidney was rotting away inside me. Drinking more and more water actually helped. It helped me, with maybe like process all the, with my kidneys draining all the shit out of my body. So. I was the only kid in the hospital that drank. And so they then used me as an example to go around and show the other kids to drink. So they would wheel me around to each bed and to inspire the other kids something. My dad would tell me all these sort of stories. And, he used to talk about how strong I was. And, so, he used to talk about when at those ages, when I was only 6 months old or something, I could grab his hands and he could hold me up by my grip. And so you tell all these sort of stories, and I think, you're the brain scientist, but I think when you're told these stories over and over again that, that you're here to help people, you're helping people, you're strong, and all this kind of stuff.
It's like positive reinforcement.
It is, and you end up believing it. you know, so when I was a karate kid, I actually thought like, hey, you know, I can help people from a young age. So, and my dad used to tell stories about when, you know, he was young and he got bullied and all this kind of stuff. But the flip side of this is I did see a lot of trauma around, you know, the conditioning we were brought up with. So my dad's got bipolar, so there was two sides of the coin always. So there was that side, the inspiring side, then also the you can't do this kind of side, and you know, we can't do this, or to be seen, not heard, and all these kind of things. So there's that other flip. So what that does do is gives you contrast. So back to the learned helplessness thing, is growing up, I identified as a kid as so many things where I saw situations which were painful, but I was like, they don't have to be painful. You know, like when you see your parents fight and all these different things. Not that my parents fought that much, but, you know, living in a country town, money was stressful and all this kind of stuff. So we get all these conditions where I saw a lot of people getting defeated based on their current situations. But I was like, hey, you know, you're only 1-2 steps away from actually improving your situation. But a lot of people, based on what their parents can do, limit themselves on what they can do. And
so
yeah.
You've had a pretty wild journey, just, you know, even with traveling. Can you share some of the highlights that you've had while you're traveling, competing and things like that?
Well, what I'll tell you about that is my first competition was in Vegas. After I won that Australian Championships, I qualified for this Las Vegas Kettlebell comp. Now, when I found out that was the next step, I told my parents, and they're like, you can't do that, you've got work. And I was like, what? You know, like, I can't do this, you know, like, and they're like, yeah, it was just such a big thing, and, you know, people like us don't do things like this and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't believe that. I was like, no, like, I want to make this happen. You know, I've got 4 jobs, I've got all these savings, like, I can do this, you know, like, I'm an adult now, I can take charge and buy my tickets to get overseas, whatever it is. And I had this one member named Natalie Seeley, and her dad actually invented the air conditioner. Natalie's a beautiful lady. She's like my second mum. And Natalie, when I moved out of the gym into my little studio, my dad was sick. We were renovating, and I was minding him. He was helping me renovate, and I was painting my first wall. I got a knock at the door, and I answered it, and it was Natalie, and she came in, and she said, are you Dave? And I said, yeah. She said, you're the kettlebell guy. I was like, yeah, I'm the kettlebell guy. She goes, well, I want to be trained by you. And at that point, my gym wasn't ready. It was a bomb site. And I said, oh, well, I'm not ready. Sorry, like, I can't train you. And she kind of like pushed me out of the way and stepped further into the studio. And she said, is that a kettlebell over there? I said, yeah. And she goes, well, move all your shit. We're going to train. I'm going to be your first client here. And I was like, yes, miss, you know, because she was a well-known lady. And for me, it's like socially, I was very low on the social ladder in that sense. And I'd heard a lot of things about her, and, you know, powerful woman. And that kick-started our relationship. And she taught me how to, you know, hold knives and forks, communicate, you know, drink red wine. And they used to cook me dinners and that when I was working at the gym all the time. And so the funny thing is she really believed in me. She was the next person. So Mark was the mentor, and my mate Brad Booth, he was the one that got me started out of high school. He was the first person I ever heard talk about work in a positive way. And so Natalie was that next person that really come into my life. And with the traveling, how it started is I almost didn't go to Vegas. But at that time, I sort of thought that I had to get sponsors to compete and all this kind of stuff. I wanted to look the part. And I remember when I was racing motocross when I was younger, I used to always dream of having a sponsor like these professional riders. And as much as my dad wouldn't mean it this way, but, you know, he would always say to me, why would they sponsor you? Who would give you free things and all this kind of stuff? People don't do that. And it really hurt me at the time because I actually considered myself quite a good rider, but I was like, no, I'll find a way to make it work, you know. And I remember, because I had that old belief, I remember chatting to Natalie, saying, Natalie, I've got these shorts, they're BSC compression shorts I'll compete in. Can I put your dad's your family's business name on my shorts so I look like I'm sponsored. You don't have to give me anything. I just want to represent your brand, because Ted's got an amazing story where he sold his car, started from nothing, a dirt floor house, and sold his car and to make the first 5 air conditioners in Australia, and come from nothing. And he's an amazing guy, a beautiful family, and phenomenal guy. And so that story inspired me. And so I asked to put these logos on my shorts. And so she went and told her dad that. And her dad was like, what does he want? And she's like, no, nothing. He just wants to put the logo on. And he goes, no, be serious. What does he want? Because this guy's very wealthy. People only come to him because they want money, free money from him. And so she goes, no, he just wants to put the logo on there. And so he turns around and goes, Natalie, you tell that fucking Dave kid that we're going to sponsor him. And she'd mentioned somehow in the conversation about me going to Vegas competing, because I had a factory in Vegas. And he said, you tell that guy we're going to not only put the logos on the shorts, we're going to pay for his flights and accommodation over in Vegas. Wow. And Natalie come and told me that, and that just was a game changer. That belief in me that I could go there and I was valuable enough and worth it and that sort of stuff. It really gave me that experience. But it was pretty funny, because being in Vegas, next minute I'm finding myself at Strike Force events, which is UFC brought them out or something. I'd run into Anderson Silva. I'd party with those guys Nick Diaz, the Diaz brothers, my friend Tracy Lee, who's a UFC photographer. Dan Henderson after we won the Strike Force events, Jason Stratham, Randy Couture, the Expandables that was in Columbus, Ohio later on. So it was pretty wild to meet all these different people. Coming from this little country town, you think you go to America, you're never going to meet these types of people, something like that. But I found myself in these wild situations where I would be hanging out with these guys, wow. After events, or meeting them in clubs and all this kind of stuff. So it's just a random chance by events, but it happened every time I went to America. Wow. And so I kind of got addicted to traveling and exploring and going over there. And every time I compete, I'd use that as a way to open my eyes up to new things. And
what you've been doing is smashing all sorts of limiting beliefs. Is that where the POW,
POW come from?
POW comes from? Or what's the story behind that?
All right, the POW, so Dave POW Tabain. I don't really go around saying that, but people, every time they hear my name is Dave POW, they start saying POW all the time. But where that comes from, bro, is when I was an electrician, I love my boss and that, but we did work with some miserable people. Mm-hmm. And mind you, they're just doing the best of what they can. But we started to get miserable about it, from them hanging around, and them being our superiors. So we decided that we weren't going to be miserable. And so I had my van, my team, and then we had the superior guys, the older guys. And so we would bring the energy to this sort of stuff. Mm. And we made this sort of pact that me and my mate Glenn is, if I catch you being miserable and being miserable and moody and no energy and not getting jobs done and all this kind of stuff, I could punch you in the arm as hard as I wanted to. And you couldn't punch me back. Mm-hmm. If I caught you doing that, it was like this, we had to snap each other out of it. And so we started to do that. And then it was at the time the movie Step Brothers come out. And he goes, pow! He's like, what do you see? He's like, pow! He's like, what the hell? And so we decided, instead of punching each other in the arm, it would be the pow thing, and we would laugh about it. And so all of a sudden it changed the energy of our job sites. We'll laugh and pow and getting in, get it done. That movie Kenny come out was like taking care of business. Every day we would rock up in our singlets and speed dealer sunnies on and music playing. It became our theme song. And we decided that we were going to bring the energy to these job sites and make it fun. We were both doing a job we knew we weren't going to do forever. But we're like, hey, it doesn't matter what you do, we're going to make sure it's fun. And so that's where the power come from. And I would do it when I'd compete overseas, because a lot of time when I'd compete overseas, I was wrecked. My tonsillitis, my tonsils were touching, I was spitting out blood. In the morning before competitions, I was wrecked, worked myself down to the bone sort of thing. And that power thing, when I turn up to these competitions, because so many people believed in me and I got these opportunities, and for me it was a chance to change my life. I wasn't just competing for a fucking little trophy or whatever it is. I was competing to change my life and inspire members to get into training and to show what they could do. And so I idolized Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I saw that movie Pumping Iron, where he would psych out his competitors by like stealing their shirt or whatever before he'd get on stage. Now, I didn't steal anyone's shirt, but what I'd do when we were warming up is I'd go, pow! And I was wrecked. But I would do that to psych all my competitors out. So then they're thinking, who's this crazy Australian guy? And I would really play up to it. I'd wear I'd get a hat from the airport with the corks on it. And I'd walk around like that. And all these Americans are like, who's this Australian guy? And I'd just fuck with them. I would just like stir them up. And like my competitors, like I realized that everyone's nervous before a comp. Nobody really gets any sleep. Mind you, I would always try and get as much sleep as I could, but I could sleep anywhere. But I remember, so I'd do these little strategies. So I'd do the power thing. Everyone's confused. My competitors who are like the best top dogs there, when you go and be this character, like takes attention from them, so they get pissed off, sort of thing. It puts them off their game. And as much as like, I want to play fair and all that sort of stuff, like when you compete, it's like the competition isn't just on the platform, it starts before.
Yeah.
Right? And then after it is for the next comp. So I would do these little things to like fuck with my competitors. So I would release a video of me breaking a record like a week before the competition, so people knew that I was coming in to win. And then if they had been training and not getting those numbers, they know they're going to lose. So when you talk about building people's spirit up, I'd also in competition is I'd do these strategies because I was wrecked, man. I was just like, I got to pull out every string to try and win these things. And so I would put that up on as a bit of a psychological warfare online on Facebook. When I'd go at the back and I'd warm it up and pow, and I'd do all this stuff, people think I'm fucking crazy. And then in conversation, I realized that when you chat with someone, if I say, hey, how do you sleep? Like, hey, where are you staying at? And they're like, oh, just the hotel. So, oh, how did you get much sleep last night? What do you think their answer was?
No.
Oh, no. So next minute, like, we're about to go on. They're like, oh, no, I got no sleep. Wrecked. Oh, wrecked, man. Like, oh, fuck. Well, I'm sorry for you, dude, man. Hopefully you do all right. I would fuck with them before I'd compete, and then I would go back and I'm like, pow, pow, all this stuff. And they're thinking, fuck, I got no sleep. This cunt's got all this energy. So it's just, this bastard's got no energy. So, so that was a bit of a psychological warfare with the competition. But, I wasn't fighting a fair fight anyway because I was wrecked, working 4 jobs and turning up these comps. I'd train at midnight, to try and fit it all in with all the things. And But yeah, man, so that's a bit of the traveling, a bit of the competition, and that's how the POW come. And now, POW stands for, I would always say it stands for passion over worry. Living a life you're passionate about rather than worrying your life away. And now also it stands for power of words. The way you speak about yourself and others says a lot about you and your character. And that's what I do in the kids' books and all that kind of stuff, is get those messages out. And all the kids' books we've got is I put in there a power plan. So give kids strategies, because we know what our pain is. We know what we should be doing, whatever it is, but it's the strategy that's going to get you there from point A to point B or point Z. Strategy is super important.
Wow.
Big belief in that.
So it's really interesting how you've gone out, been the challenge guy, been very successful with 30-day challenges, but then you also work with kids. What's the idea there? What's driving you to work with kids nowadays?
Because there was a lot of times where when I was younger too, I wish I had someone come in and inspire me. And the POWMAN, if you want to know how the POWMAN stuff happened, was because of the POWMAN. I was always a fan of Batman growing up. Always, POWMAN's like a superhero where it's all about being your own superhero. That's the whole philosophy around it. So people think I'm POWMAN. I'm not. The POWMAN story is about you being your own hero. You're POWMAN. So anyone can be POWMAN, basically. It's that belief in someone greater than yourself to get you through those challenging times. So what actually happened is I had a young kid called Aiden up in Kilbutcher in Queensland, where I was doing a 30-day challenge with Dave Huckabee. After 30 days, he'd lost 11 kilos, and he was only 17, 18 at the time. He was very shy, unconfident, and he was actually an artist, and he never showed anyone his artwork. He then, on day 30, made me a shirt with POWMAN, like this comic character, and gave me a singlet and a design for Facebook and Instagram and that. And I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I've always had this dream to do it. And so he drew me up a couple more. I actually was his first paying client. And he drew one up. And I put it on Facebook, and I was like, because he was like, Dave, you're the power man. You helped me find my confidence, all this kind of stuff. And he's actually now in America designing for Patagonia.
Wow.
And so now he gave me that. I put it on Facebook, and I was like, POWMAN is coming. It's a kids empowerment book series to help kids rise above their challenges. Use the same philosophy around my 30-day challenge and that to overcome and turn a negative into positive and be the best they can be and all this kind of stuff. And I was driving from Ulladulla at the time because I was doing another challenge down there. Next time I get this phone call by Gary. And Gary Evans down there at Harbour Publishing. He calls me up, who was in my last challenge. He goes, Dave, what's this POWMAN book you're talking about? I was like, Gaz, it's always been on the back burner, but I didn't think it was the first thing to do because me and Gary were going to create a 30-day challenge book. He's like, Gaz, he's like, Dave, this is fire. This is what kids need. There's a lot of bullying going on these days. Kids need this stuff. And so I told him about it, and he's like, all right, we're going to find Tim. I was like, but Gaz, I failed English at school. I'm not the best writer and all this kind of stuff. He goes, you don't need to worry that. Like, we will record your story. You just speak to us. Tell us. We've got heaps of people who love writing. And so I'll find you the team. We've got the illustrator and all that sort of stuff. And so I was like, wow, we can make it happen. And so I was like, Gaz, I'm in. And so I hung up the phone. And I was like, first book deal. Wow. And so I ended up, his sister-in-law, Nadia, is who captured it. So I, down doing another challenge in Wagga, spoke the story, and then we refined it and edited it. So that's how the first story come about, Be Your Own Hero.
Wow.
And it talks about me and my best mate, Dan, who got bullied. And at the time, I didn't stand up for him like I should have. And I froze. And I felt bad about it, and I saw that it was affecting him, and so I made a pact to myself, I'm never going to not have his back again. And that's how in the story it talks about going from not helping and being a bystander to then going, cool, Dan, I'm your friend, let's do something about this and have a strategy. And we create a power plan in it to show kids how to rise above bullying and challenging situations and be a better friend, look out for one another. I show kids how to go beyond your current environment situation and get out there and create the life that you want to live. And so, I'm super passionate about helping young kids overcome that and develop what I call a solution-based mindset, where you find reasons to succeed rather than reasons not to. And you focus on solutions versus problems all the time. And then the high school stuff as well. We all were a high school kid. We all went through bullying. We all went through self-esteem issues, confidence, not knowing our future, not knowing, what's next after high school, being confused about our job, and all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to show kids that, you can't control everything, but you can put yourself in the best situation and make the best of what you got. Because I do believe life is kind of like poker. It's not about your cards, but how you play them. And so I wanted to be that example to show kids. So that's, I knew that parents, it works for parents. A lot of people said to me, like, Dave, like, my kids need to hear this. I'm like, cool. And so that means I put it into a form that kids can understand. So that's how it started to work for kids as well.
Yeah.
Now, hey, let me just say this though. I'm not there to take away the pain or the challenge, because that's where you grow from. So sometimes we've got to touch the hot plate of life, but I'm there to show them that you don't have to sit there forever. You don't have to simmer on it. It can change. You can go beyond it, because we all need those things to break down for us to have that breakthrough. So I don't want to cotton wool anyone. I want to develop that resilience with themselves, so they know that they can do it themselves and overcome it.
Yeah. That's really powerful. On that note, we're gonna go and do a challenge, and hopefully you can train my mental fortitude to bear with the kettlebells and challenge myself to be able to have that mental resilience.
Yeah, the kettlebell. So for people listening, I'll explain what kettlebell competition is.
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes. You don't stop. You can't put them down. Once they're up, they're up. You got 2 on your chest, and it's the jerk above your head. So I compete on 224s, 228s, or 232s. So how much do you weigh?
Around 60
kgs. So in comps, I'll do 232s, which is 64 kilos. So imagine me lifting you for 10 minutes above my head.
Wow.
Non-stop. So it sucks. It hurts. It's not a spectator sport. It's not crazy. And then you do the snatch, which is one hand. So you can only get one hand switch. So, you sometimes by the end of it, you're skin's ripped off your hand, there's blood everywhere, all this kind of stuff. That is a challenge, right, to do that sort of stuff. Now, sadly, I don't have any kettlebells right here, right? But I know that in our previous chats, and I sort of prepared this early because I don't have any kettlebells because due to COVID, I got rid of them, gave them to my mate Tony. Don't have any kettlebells, but the challenge I want to give to you, I'm not sure if anyone knows about your upbringing coming, our chats earlier where you said you come from Fiji and, you're an Indian kid in Fiji. You weren't the biggest kid in Fiji, and there's a lot of big kids in Fiji. Yeah. And so you had to develop different ways to deal with that. And, I really think that your story and what you shared with me, and I guess people will hear more about your story after this, is you went from being a kid that got bullied in a country, and you're now living in another country, but you're also a brain scientist now, a neuroscientist. And I want to let you know that there's so many kids that I come across in schools that maybe they're not the biggest, they're not the strongest, they're not the best at sports or whatever it is, but they've got the brains, they've got different strengths. And I'm really passionate on helping kids find their strengths and exploit your strengths, leverage that, work on that. So instead of doing a kettlebell challenge, because anyone can try and hold on to them for 10 minutes, it kind of sucks. So I want to challenge you more on what can you create right now with your own story in the form of a book that you can then show kids how to go from a bullied kid to a brain scientist.
Wow.
So that's the challenge I want to do. I'm going to throw on you right now. And so in the next hour or so, I'm going to show you, because I love creating. The big thing about all the things I sort of do is in challenging times, you've got to be able to create something to then be your vehicle, your next vehicle sort of things. And a lot of people, when they get challenging times, they go, I don't have things, blah, blah, blah. When you don't have something, you fucking create it. You pave that way forward. And so in this next hour, I think your story, a lot of people don't know about it, but I think we can do some great stuff with your story to build a book. And then you can also inspire kids to use their brains to go beyond those situations where they're bullied and all that sort of stuff. And I think there could be a better time spent than throwing kettlebells. What do you reckon?
It's really crazy because I came to you specifically to work on the kettlebells.
Well, I got none here. I just moved in my new place. I don't have any kettlebells with me. Sorry to disappoint them.
But what's interesting is that it is more challenging for me to confront, writing a kid's book because my brain has not been challenged in that way. I don't even know if I have the mental mind space to do
all right,
that.
listen here. So I'm talking to a PhD brain neuroscientist guy who's telling me someone who failed English that they can't write a book. It's actually bullshit. You've already got a book, don't you? You already got a book.
Yeah.
All right. So it is something new.
Yeah.
And I want the time we're going to spend right now is.
It's pretty cool that you're calling me on my bullshit.
Yeah, I'm calling you on your bullshit, man. And I want to show you because I love showing people what they can do rather than what they can't do. And so this challenge as well is you can't use the word can't.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's enough can'ts in this world, right? CANTS. People say you can't do this, can't do that, and we say it to ourselves. We're our own biggest can't. I've got another book coming out about that.
Yeah.
So you're a fucking PhD, something that I feel that would be way out of reach for me, but you've done it, you've rocked it. And so I want to show you how to harness what you have done and put that into this kids' books because you'll be blown away at what you can do. And, for yourself, man, if you could speak to your youngest kid, your youngest self, when you were what was the hardest time for you when you were when you were a kid?
Yeah, the hardest would have been always being told, I can't do that.
Now, what age? What age, bro? When was it the first you started getting told that you can't do that?
So it was throughout. So the moment I entered the school system, but even before that, growing up as a kid, even my parents would be telling me, you can't do this, you can't do that. So that you can't, even when you asked me to do this book challenge, the first thing I came up with was, I can't.
Can't do that.
Yeah. So it's so hardwired that it comes out even without me, consciously.
And that's the conditioning, man. And that's also the fear stuff. And a lot of us say we can't do this. But, I want to show people how to flip that and go, hey, what can I do? How can I do it? think of different ways, or who do I need to talk to do that? And so I'm in front of you. I've got 3 books. I'm going to show you the process, and we're going to draw out your story, your essence of that, because where I was really getting to, just say you're a 10-year-old self. What would you say to that 10-year-old self if you could go back in time and have a chat with that 10-year-old self?
Wow. That'll be a serious conversation. Some pretty hard words, actually.
Yeah. But it would change that little boy's life, and it's a great thing to be able to pass on that. So you've made it this far, and there's a lot of people out there who do need that help, that person, that inspiration, that something outside of their circle that they need to lock onto, that hero in that. So I want you to use your brains, your smarts, your experience, all that sort of stuff, to then be able to be that hero for other people. Because I work with kids who are getting bullied all the time. There's a lot of kids that have these amazing brains, and I tell kids in the high school program, I say, hey, that kid you've been picking on, he'll probably be your boss one day, so you better pull your fucking head in, right? So I have all these jokes to sort of level the playing field a little bit and have people value each other more than just like, oh, I'm the jock, I'm the cool guy, and he's the nerdy guy, or whatever it is. I want everyone to value each other, because when you get in life, we all have different types of friends in different strengths, different intelligence, different industries. And the way you make it in life is you have an amazing network full of a vast range of people. And so we've got to get out of that high school thinking of who's cool, who's not, blah, 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 and start to see people's value and what they can bring and what you can collaborate and do together and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be a bit of an essence of this book. And I'm going to show you how to do it.
Incredible. Let's do this, Dave.
Cool. I've been working at Hustle Bros with the boxing, the fist pump.
Yeah.
Cool, let's get it?
Yeah, let's do this.
When we wrote this book together, a bit of a guidepost I use for it is that I put 12 steps, 12 kind of components of a story together, and then I came in about each step and how to get it out. And I utilized the hero journey as a bit of an inspiration to get ideas and his life experience out, and then just wrote it from there and linked it all together throughout that book.
Dave, here we are back after 6 months, and what a journey it's been, man. We now have a book ready. It's going to be published this Sunday, and Sunday 28th of March.
Yeah.
So suddenly, from coming to you simply to do an interview, had no idea I was going to actually be writing a book. But 6 months onwards, I now have a new product ready.
Yeah.
So what a journey.
You did it. And that was a challenge. So, he wanted to do the Kettlebell challenge with me, but I was like, hey, let's create something more meaningful than that. And so we, come up with this book called The Adventures of Cayman, the Explorer. And, when I have a lot of people that, challenges and that, going through things like this, a lot of people when they're tested or when they're trialed or when they're challenged, some people don't follow through, but Cayman here actually followed through. And now he's got his own kids' book talking about his own story and in his upbringing too, to empower other kids. And that's what I'm big about. So dude, you did it, you wrote it, you not only edited it and got illustrations, and tell us about the journey of what you actually did. So the moment, we spent about 8 hours together getting it out, writing. You would have seen in the video so far, the podcast already, you would have seen how bloody tired I was there as well. And so 8 hours is just grinding out pen to paper, the power of putting books together when you've got someone else with you is that when you get what they call writer's block or stuck, you don't just give up, you figure it out. And that's super powerful when you do it together with someone. So we've got a challenge coming up later we'll talk about, but okay man, tell us about what happened after we got the draft out, 8 hours. What did you then do?
Yeah, so that was the initial draft, right? And then we basically went back, fine-tuned it. You're a very busy person to get a hold of, so we did find enough time. Within 2 weeks we had the entire draft, which blew my mind. I've got a previous book, The Hidden World, and that took well over 8 months to put together. So to have something that came through just within within 2 weeks was quite mind-blowing.
And there's no pictures in that one either. Okay?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the story is about me immigrating to a new country and starting life from scratch. And I happened to have arrived in New Zealand, and I was living with my uncle back in year 2000. And at that time, I had a cousin who had just been born, and literally almost 20 years on, she's now 21, and she happens to be an illustrator.
Ooh.
So she's the one who illustrated this book. So just another, I guess, series of coincidences that, could not have been a better alignment, because when I arrived, she had just been born, and to now where, she has been such a huge part of illustrating this book.
Yeah.
So
and is this her first book as well?
Yes, exactly. So I think I put her up to the challenge as well,
Which is super wild, because when we wrote this book, we didn't know when it was going to get published, how, we didn't know the illustrator or any of that kind of stuff. But the thing is, we got started. Not only got started, within those 2 weeks, we had the draft, we had it together. They were in your hands, man, but then you had a bit of an epiphany that, hey, my cousin, or you reached out to her, I think, or somehow you reached out to her, and then she happens, 20 years later, she happens to be an illustrator, and now she's now got a book under her belt when it comes to illustration. So now you haven't only created your book to help other people, you've also helped your cousin, which was the daughter of your uncle that you first lived with. Shout out to your cousin who illustrated the book. I've got the book right here in front of me, and it looks great. And illustrations are awesome, and I'm wishing you all the success with your future career. And now when you show up to gigs, when people say, like, what do you do? You're not saying, I'm a wannabe illustrator. You're like, hey, I've illustrated a book already, this is it. Which is really cool, it's an empowering thing. So dude, hats off to you for actually making this possible.
Yeah,
what else about the book? Tell the crew about more the purpose and meaning behind this book, because when we sat down, I'm a big believer that everyone has their own story, and a story that can help empower other people through their life experiences and challenges and that. But dude, you're what we drew out when going through the book, because we didn't know where the story was going to go. I had a bit of a process that I follow, but we drew it out. Where's this book gonna really make an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole thing about this book is it's for kids who have immigrated to a new country, and often it's not by their own choice. There might be political issues that are happening in their land. There might be poverty. Usually these are third world countries. And so for kids to suddenly arrive into a new land, try to integrate, and they have barriers around language. They have problems integrating because morals and social standards are different. So they're faced with all these issues, and at the same time they have to do well at school and do all the things that everyone else is doing as well.
All the different pressures as well.
So for me, when I arrived into a new country, I had very similar challenges, but I didn't see that as something that was going to hold me back. I didn't victimize myself.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So you're not teaching kids in this book to be the victim. Yeah. It's the opposite, right?
Absolutely. And so because I went through that entire process, and now I feel like almost 20 years on, a completely different person, and being able to help so many kids with this idea. So the themes of this book is around integrating into a new culture, so it's very useful for immigrant kids. Also, it's around bullying and how to navigate that, because when you're so vulnerable, you can be picked on very easily.
Easy target.
Exactly. And so this is for kids who do have sort of, I guess, learning disabilities or do get picked on.
Different challenges.
They feel different. And for them to find a way to not only connect with people, but to make new friends in a new environment, I think that's really powerful for any kid to be able to have those tools.
And dude, one thing you're missing out of here, and it's quite humble with this, but one of the greatest things that I love about this book is that it actually teaches kids how to deal and strategize against difficult people. So if you call a bully a difficult person to deal with, one of the greatest skills I believe that you can teach kids is how to deal with these difficult situations. Because if we just remove the bully, yeah, that might fix the situation in the moment, but it's not teaching that person to deal with these people, to just differentiate what you let in and what you take on as truth sort of thing. So I think the biggest impact you're going to have these books is showing kids the power of being able to address the problem, being able to address the person, be able to create strategies, and that's what you got in there as well. How to deal with when things don't go your way, because one thing I can guarantee that kids are going to face and keep facing is they're going to deal with challenging people. Things aren't going to go their way, and at the end of the day, it's how you respond to these sort of things. So that's the cool thing about the story. So you're going to have to make sure you read it to get in there. But man, I think that's the biggest thing that in today's world is we can never control we can't control everything in the external, but we can change our internal reaction to it and response to it. And I love the fact that this book is teaching kids to be the victor of the circumstance, not the victim. And that's a huge one. So man, hats off to you, bro. And mate, you did it. So where can people find this book?
So it's going to be on Amazon as soon as this video goes live.
Pow!
Yeah.
Straight on Amazon, hey?
Yeah. So on Amazon, so it's available as paperback or Kindle.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you will have access to this book in either one of those forms.
Which is wild. So going from an idea about a YouTube video to a challenge about kettlebells to now a proper challenge. Hey, let's create a book. Let's create something with meaning to it. Because I can put anyone through a kettlebell set. Yeah. But the thing is that is only last temporary. And when you create a book, you create a product, you create something that can really change and go beyond even yourself. Like some kid who you've never met can read that book and it can change their whole life, their whole outlook, their whole perspective on life. So that's the power of doing this sort of stuff. So on that, not only did I challenge K-Man over here to put a book together, is I then also, we want to challenge you out there, the people watching this right now, is if you have a book that's inside you, to be thinking about writing and all that, let's turn it from thinking about it to actually action. Let's go from 0, let's go to 1, and our little challenge is, even if it's the next 30 days or even shorter than that, is get your book out, get it onto paper, and have one person read it. Okay, now that doesn't mean it needs to be perfect, doesn't mean that you need to have everything done in regards to illustrations, but our challenge to you is to write your own book. And whether it's about, it doesn't matter what it's about, whatever you have inside you, there's nobody that's going to pick that pen up and write the book for you that you need to do. Unless you got me in your corner. But I'm right here, I'm with this guy. So I'm writing enough books of my own. So that's a little challenge for us. Is there anything you want to touch on about the challenge with this? It's something they can really take what we've done here and also use it for inspiration to actually get out what they've probably been thinking about doing on pen and paper as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the challenge really is to write something out straight away without really thinking too much about it. Writer's block often comes because we start over-analyzing things and then we have too many ideas and then we don't know where to start, or we have over-analyzed it to the point where it's become too complicated. So we don't want to end up in those areas. So just simply write out whatever comes through, and then you can refine it later. And I do want people to actually go on and publish this book, whether it's self-publishing, which is what I've done in this case, or whether going to an actual publisher. There's so many routes to doing this, and there's not any route that is the right way. So go ahead, write your own book, and this is the 30-day challenge.
There we go, 30-day book writing challenge. Now, check this out, guys. The way you get started, one word, one sentence, one page, one chapter at a time. Because there's more people in this world that can edit a book really well than there are the stories to write about. So remember that. It's all about the story. You'll always find someone to edit. And dude, you've done the editing. You've done the illustrations. It's there. It's launched. These guys, they'll be able to get the links in the YouTube video.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the links to the book is in the description below. So by all means, jump onto Amazon and use this book, perhaps even as a gift to,
Someone else.
Yeah, someone else, because you never know whose life this might change. And I am really excited to see how the journey of this book unfolds.
Yep.
And really keen to have this message spread through schools. And one more thing on that note, all the proceeds from this book is actually going to a children's charity for terminally ill kids.
Yeah, wow.
And that episode has already been recorded. We've done it with Ido. And his charity is called A Sound Life. So
wow.
By buying this book, you're actually helping support families and kids who are going through their own tragedies.
Yeah, wow.
So there's an extended cause from this book as well.
Wow. So there's more than one purpose. So guys, get inspired by that. Bloody look at his book when it comes out, or in the link below. Download it, buy it, get all sorted, and man, bring on what's to come. Hey, this is where we go from 0 to 1 and create a bit of a ripple effect out there.
So if you want to follow Dave's work, you can find him on Instagram. It's POW Tabain.
Yep, POW Tabain on Instagram and Facebook too. If you
Facebook
want.
as well, and just follow his amazing journey as well. It is such a brilliant work that you do, and I'm so grateful to have done this process with you.
No worries, man. I just love showing people how to create and how to say create things that turn whatever challenges they face into something that can inspire other people. And that I love it. Love creating. It's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Pow!
Pow!
Awesome, bro. Rock and roll.